specifically are we unearthing today? We're going to unpack something called Project Bluebeam. Now, this isn't just, another fleeting online rumor.
No, not at all.
It's this incredibly detailed, really intricate allegation suggesting a huge global deception is being planned.
Or has been planned, according to the theory.
Right. A plan theorized to be orchestrated by, shadowy global elites. Names like NASA and the United Nations supposedly pop up.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole point is supposedly to usher in this dramatic, sweeping change, a new world order.
And, even though the project itself remains completely unproven, the theory taps into some really deep anxieties.
Like what?
Fears of control, right? The idea that belief itself could be weaponized, and the potential misuse of technologies that, even today feel almost like science fiction. Understanding it gives you a kind of lens, a way to look at our own susceptibility to big, large-scale influence.
So our guide on this journey today is largely the work of Serge Monast. He was a Canadian investigative journalist, and he really pushed this theory into the public eye back in the 1990s.
Yeah, his 1994 publication was key.
But we're not stopping there. We'll also be looking at further analyses, things from our source material that highlight some genuinely unsettling parallels to documented real-world psychological operations.
Side-ups, yeah. Things that governments have actually done.
Exactly. And we'll also break down some modern technologies that could, theoretically at least, enable a scenario that sounds chillingly similar to Bluebeam.
Even if Bluebeam itself isn't real, the potential is there.
Right. So our mission for you, our listener, is to explore exactly what Project Bluebeam is supposed to be, its alleged purpose, those disturbing historical echoes of government deception we mentioned, and the cutting-edge tech that makes the Bluebeam-like event seem, eerily plausible.
Yeah.
Even if the project itself is still unproven.
Mm-hmm.
So get ready for some potentially profound questions, some critical perspectives, because this deep dive, it really is going to challenge your perceptions of what's real and what might be possible in our world today.
Yeah, it's really about giving you the context, the tools to critically assess information, especially as technology keeps blurring that line between what's real and what's simulated.
Okay, let's start at the beginning then. Ground ourselves in the basics. What exactly is Project Bluebeam, and where did this pretty extraordinary theory come from?
So at its heart, Project Bluebeam really gained traction thanks to Serge Monast, that Canadian journalist you mentioned.
Right.
He laid it out in his 1994 publication, which had the pretty provocative title, NASA's Project Bluebeam.
Doesn't leave much room for interpretation there.
Not really. Monast basically alleged that this was a top-secret operation, a conspiracy involving NASA and the United Nations. And the goal, to manipulate everyone on Earth into accepting a new kind of religion, a New Age religion.
A single global religion.
Yes. And according to Monast, this religion would be led by an anti-Christ figure. And all of this would serve as the sort of spiritual and ideological foundation for a new world order.
So the core mechanism, the linchpin for this whole alleged project, is some kind of massive technologically fake event. Like a simulated second coming, or maybe a fake alien invasion.
That's the core idea, yes. A monumental deception designed to completely reshape global belief systems. It's aiming really high right from the start.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Monast. There's some dramatic context around him, too, isn't there? Our sources mentioned some pretty serious claims.
There is. It's important context, actually. The sources mention rumors that he faced intense harassment after publishing his work. His death is described as unconfirmed or mysterious by some accounts. And there are even these unverified claims that his daughter was abducted by the Canadian government, supposedly to dissuade him from continuing his investigations.
Wow. Now, those are unverified, you say?
Absolutely unverified. But these sensational claims, true or not, they definitely underscored the perceived gravity of the information Monast was trying to get out there. They suggest the kind of stakes he believed were involved.
Right. And that kind of context, even if it's just rumor, it adds this layer of intrigue. Or for some people, it fuels the idea of a powerful conspiracy trying to silence him.
Exactly. It makes the whole thing feel heavier, more dangerous.
Okay, that context is definitely unsettling. So if this project were real, what would its ultimate purpose be? Why go to such incredible lengths, orchestrate this massive, elaborate deception?
Well, according to Monast's work, the purpose is incredibly ambitious. It's aiming for nothing less than a total transformation of the planet.
Okay.
The first major goal, and maybe the most audacious, is to completely abolish all traditional religions. Just wipe them out.
All of them. Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism.
All existing faiths, yeah.
Yeah.
Systematically dismantled. And in their place, the theory goes, would rise this single one-world religion. Monast called it based on the cult of man and involving what he termed Luciferian initiation.
Luciferian initiation. What exactly does that imply in this context?
It taps into this vein of thought you often find in conspiracy circles, linking it to secret societies, occult beliefs.
Sure.
It implies the architects aren't just secular globalists, but driven by some kind of darker, hidden spiritual agenda, not just politics.
Okay, so not just a new political structure, but a fundamentally different spiritual one.
Right. And this new face would specifically target and aim to replace the core doctrines of the big established religions. Christianity and Islam are often mentioned as primary targets in the source material.
So it's not just about adding another religion, it's a deliberate eradication and replacement, a complete overhaul of spiritual frameworks.
And does it stop at religion?
No, it goes further. The second major objective is to dismantle national identity itself. National pride, gone.
No.
By eroding the unique cultural and political identities of nations, replacing them with a single global identity. Global pride.
So breaking down loyalty to country.
Exactly. And it drills down even deeper to the family unit. The traditional family structure is apparently meant to be replaced by individuals whose main loyalty, their whole purpose, is just to work for this one world government.
Wow. Dissolving kinship, national ties, all in favor of some kind of state-controlled collectivism.
It's about removing any competing loyalties, yeah.
Okay, so religion, national identity, family. What about individual expression? Art, science. That's targeted too. The project supposedly aims to suppress individual creativity, systematically destroy individual artistic and scientific works.
Why?
The idea is to eliminate independent thought, independent innovation, and implement what Monast called the world government's one mind sight. A collective consciousness dictated from the top.
A one mind sight.
Oh.
That's chilling. And all this points towards establishing what? A global government.
Precisely. Universal mandatory UN membership for every nation. National sovereignty basically becomes meaningless. You'd have multinational military forces, multinational police forces, all under one central command.
A single global authority.
Yeah, with a worldwide Justice Department, an international criminal court with global reach, new world trade agreements designed to centralize all the economic power. It's total consolidation.
A completely centralized, top-down global structure. And underpinning all of that, a new global culture.
That's the final piece, fostering this new world religion and a single unified culture for all of humanity. Monast even offered some historical context for his timeline.
Oh, what do you suggest?
He believed the project was initially slated for 1983.
1980, why then?
He claimed that date jived, as the source puts it, with information presented to an Illinois legislative committee back in 1978. That information apparently discussed a shift towards socialism through regionalism and establishing a new order by 1985.
Interesting connection.
He also linked 1983 to the whole cultural idea of the dawning of the age of Aquarius. You know, the song, the themes of global unity, spiritual awakening. He saw it as fitting into this longer-term ideological plan.
So he was trying to weave together political maneuvering, cultural shifts, spiritual ideas, suggesting this wasn't just a sudden plan, but something building for a long time.
Exactly, a long game.
It's fascinating how these theories connect cultural touchstones with these alleged secret plans. Okay, so we have the What Project Bluebeam and the alleged why total global control under a new order. Now let's get into the alleged how. Monast apparently laid out 4 distinct, pretty terrifying steps. What's step 1?
Step 1 is called the breakdown of archaeological knowledge. And it starts, interestingly, not with some grand revelation, but with destruction.
Destruction.
Yeah. It supposedly involves artificially created earthquakes. Not random ones, but precisely targeted seismic events at specific key archaeological sites around the world. Places with huge historical and religious significance.
So manufactured earthquakes designed to hit places like ancient temples, historical sites. Why? What's the goal of doing that?
The idea is that these specific earthquakes would conveniently unearth new discoveries, artifacts, ruins, maybe even texts.
Okay.
But these discoveries would be false proofs. They'd be fabricated or misinterpreted evidence, specifically engineered to, and I quote the source here, explain the wrong meaning of all major religions' basic doctrines.
So plant fake evidence to make it look like all the major religions got it wrong.
Exactly. Imagine finding something that seems to directly contradict the Bible or the Quran or other foundational scriptures. The goal is to fundamentally discredit existing religious beliefs, especially Christianity and Islam, according to Monast, by making people think their entire understanding of faith and history has been based on a centuries-old misunderstanding, or even a deliberate lie.
That's incredibly insidious, shaking people's core beliefs by faking history.
It's psychological warfare using archaeology, essentially, sowing doubt and confusion on a massive scale.
And the sources suggest we've already been sort of primed for this, psychologically prepared.
Yeah, the theory claims that popular culture has been doing the groundwork for decades. Think about films like 2001, A Space Odyssey, Star Trek, Star Wars.
Space, aliens, cosmic events.
Right. They condition us to accept extraordinary possibilities, maybe even extraterrestrial intervention. The source even mentions Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park, how does that fit in?
The theory suggests its themes of evolution, of science mastering nature, subtly work to discredit the idea of divine creation, weakening traditional religious narratives.
Interesting take.
So the overall goal of this first step, according to Monast, is to throw down and shake up the beliefs of religious people globally, especially Christians, by providing this seemingly undeniable false proof that their religions are based on falsehoods. The psychological prep helps ensure the new truth is easier to swallow when it's revealed.
It's a strategy of discrediting the past to control the narrative of the present. Okay, that's step one. Step two sounds even more dramatic, like something out of a Hollywood blockbuster. The gigantic space show with holograms and sounds.
Yeah, this is probably the most visually striking part of the whole theory. It proposes using space-based laser-generating satellites.
Satellites projecting.
With simultaneous three-dimensional optical holograms.
Yeah.
And sounds. Highly realistic projections onto the sky itself, using it like a giant movie screen.
The sky as a movie screen. How would that even work?
The theory points specifically to the sodium layer in the atmosphere, which is about 60 miles up. Apparently, it can act as a sort of diffuse screen for these massive projections.
Wow. So we're talking about huge, sky-filling images that would look incredibly real, visible to potentially billions of people.
That's the idea. Spectacularly convincing, lifelike realness is how the source describes it.
Yeah.
And these wouldn't just be random images. The plan is supposedly highly customized.
Customized how?
Regionally and nationally specific based on the dominant religion. So in Christian areas, maybe you'd see a massive awe-inspiring image of Jesus.
Okay.
In Muslim countries, perhaps Muhammad. In parts of Asia, Buddha or Krishna. The images would be tailored using advanced AI and databases on culture and language. They'd speak in all local languages and dialects, perfectly synchronized by computers.
A personalized divine experience, but delivered globally, simultaneously. That's staggering. But it doesn't stop with separate figures appearing, does it? There's a convergence.
Exactly. That's the next part of the trick. Eventually, all these different regional projections, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, etc., are supposed to merge. They coalesce into one God.
One single figure.
Yes. And this figure, who Monast identifies as the Antichrist, would then deliver a global message.
What message?
Essentially that all the world's scriptures, all the holy books have been misunderstood or misinterpreted throughout history. That the existing religions are actually the cause of division, war, and suffering.
Ah, so the religions themselves are the problem.
Right. And therefore, they must be abolished to make way for a new golden age of peace and unity, all under this new one world religion led by the Antichrist figure. It's a manufactured spiritual authority taking over.
The sheer audacity. Rewriting religious history for billions, unifying them under a fake deity. The chaos that would cause.
Oh, absolutely. Monast predicted massive social and religious disorder. The theory even includes this really disturbing detail about millions of programmed religious fanatics through demonic possession cases on a scale never seen before.
Wait, demonic possession. How does that fit in?
It suggests the holographic show isn't just visual and auditory, but perhaps designed to trigger mass psychological breakdowns, maybe even tapping into some kind of darker spiritual frequency, according to the theory's internal logic, making people vulnerable.
That's incredibly dark.
And this whole spectacle is allegedly planned to happen during a time of widespread political anarchy and chaos to maximize the impact. People would be desperate for answers, for order.
And the source mentions an anthem for this new religion.
Yeah, another chilling detail. The UN supposedly plans to use Beethoven's Ode to Joy, that powerful anthem of human brotherhood, as the official anthem for this new imposed world religion.
Using a symbol of unity for a purpose of deception.
Wow. Okay, what's the technological basis for this? How could such convincing holograms and sounds even be possible on that scale?
The theory points to research in electromagnetic radiation and hypnosis, or neurolinguistic programming.
Yeah.
It references work from the 70s, like G.F. Shappett's 1974 research.
What did that research suggest? It explored using modulated electromagnetic energy to transmit spoken words directly into the human brain, supposedly bypassing normal hearing, making people think the thoughts are their own.
Voice-to-skull tech, basically.
That kind of concept, yeah. Monast linked this to what he saw as a suspicious increase in channelers. Around that time, people claiming to receive messages from spirits or aliens. He argued their messages were often suspiciously similar and convenient for the New World Order narrative.
And there was another, even more physical aspect mentioned, something about abduction.
Yes. The theory claims the technology within Bluebeam also includes the ability to physically manipulate people, to take up a whole bunch of people as in a rapture type of situation using some kind of tractor beam.
Like in sci-fi movies.
Pretty much, whisking them away to, as the source puts it, never, never land. This draws a direct, unsettling parallel to alien abduction stories. It adds this physical removal aspect to the manipulation, maybe getting rid of opponents or just adding to the confusion and fear.
So we're moving from global illusions to personal physical intrusion. That leads us right into step 3, telepathic electronic two-way communication. How is that supposed to work?
This step goes deep into direct mind control territory. It talks about using specific wave frequencies, ELF, extremely low frequency, VLF, very low frequency, and LF, low frequency. Transmitted from satellites, beamed directly into people's brains. But here's the key part. These waves are supposedly fed from the memory of computers. Computers holding massive amounts of data on human languages, dialects, psychological profiles, cultural backgrounds, everything.
Why? What do they do with that data?
The system uses it to interlace artificial thought patterns with a person's natural thinking process, creating what the theory chillingly calls artificial talk.
Artificial talk. So
Yeah.
voices in your head, but you think they're your own thoughts. Or maybe God talking to you.
Precisely. The goal is to make each one believe that his own God is talking to each one from within his own soul. The tech is supposedly so sophisticated, it perfectly mimics your internal voice, your beliefs, making it impossible to tell it's external.
How could you defend against that if it feels completely internal?
That's the horrifying effectiveness described in the theory. It bypasses your critical faculties. It targets the core of your consciousness, your faith. Monast's sources pointed to research from the 70s to the 90s that compared the brain to a computer, suggesting that if you have enough data, you can input signals to control the output, our thoughts, our perceptions.
Like hacking the human brain on a mass scale.
That's the implication. And the sources mention specific researchers and ideas that seem to support this potential, at least in theory.
Like who?
Psychologist Gene V. McConnell, for instance. Writing in Psychology Today back in 1970, he discussed combining sensory deprivation, drugs, hypnosis, reward punishment to get almost absolute control over behavior. He called it positive brainwashing.
Positive brainwashing. That sounds Orwellian.
He suggested society could be reshaped from birth using these techniques. And the source material connects this to an alleged UN belief that no one owns his own personality, implying an ideological justification for this kind of manipulation.
The idea that personality itself is up for grabs. Terrifying. What specific technologies are mentioned that could enable this kind of mind control?
Several are listed. One claim involves advanced U.S. communication equipment. The theory says it can make the blind see, the deaf hear, and the lame walk, maybe through neural stimulation.
That sounds potentially amazing.
But the claim continues that this same tech is allegedly used by agencies like the CIA and FBI for darker purposes. Torture, murder, screening for terrorists, targeting activists, even creating Manchurian candidates.
Programmed assassins or agents?
Right. Automatons. It suggests this powerful tech has been weaponized for control.
It's a classic dual-use technology scenario, but taken to an extreme. What else?
Loral Electro-Optical System, a defense contractor, is mentioned. Allegedly, they researched directed energy weapons specifically designed to implant messages into enemy minds, or maybe induce superhuman courage in friendly troops.
directly influencing thought and emotion for military advantage.
Exactly. And the effects described for some of these technologies are truly horrific.
Such as?
Electromagnetic radiation, specifically gigahertz pulses at ELF frequencies, are claimed to be used for long-distance physical and mental torture. The source cites the example of the women peace protesters at Greenham Common Air Base in the UK.
What allegedly happened to them?
The claim is they were targeted with this tech. It can supposedly induce total sensory deprivation by blocking auditory nerves, essentially making it impossible for victims to even hear themselves think. A profound form of psychological torment.
Unimaginable. What about more direct auditory effects, bypassing the ears?
That's where pulse microwave devices come in. These can supposedly deliver audible signals directly into someone's brain, the microwave auditory effect, or Frey effect we touched on.
So you hear it, but no one else does, and there's no actual sound wave.
Exactly. It's pulsed microwaves interacting directly with your brain tissue, creating the perception of sound. The theory suggests this could be built using something as simple as a police radar gun. Dr. Joseph C. Sharp's 1973 experiments at Walter Reed are cited as evidence.
And the applications.
Driving targets crazy with voice, as the source puts it, or delivering undetectable instructions to a programmed asset, a literal voice of God, or perhaps the devil weaponized.
Chilling. And are there claims of even more severe biological effects?
Yes. The theory mentions experiments by someone named Olin Frey, where microwave beams were used to speed up, slow down, or even stop frog hearts.
Suggesting
the possibility of inducing heart attacks in humans remotely. Also, UHF electromagnetic energy beams are described as causing agitation, muscle weakness, lethargy, skin burns, and affecting brain function.
These sound like things investigated in programs like MKUltra.
They do. And the source mentions Dr. Sidney Gottlieb from MKUltra testifying to the Senate in 1977 about CIA research into, quote, vacuation of human organs by remote electronic means.
Remote organ harvesting, that's beyond disturbing. This level of alleged capability is just staggering. Did the sources claim this tech was ever used for political interference?
There's one specific, very controversial claim mentioned. It alleges that microwave technology was used against Michael Dukakis during the 1988 U.S. presidential election to hinder his public speaking ability and, even more disturbingly, allegedly to drive his wife, Kitty Dukakis, towards a suicide attempt. Now, that's a huge and unverified claim, but it's in the source material as an example of alleged political weaponization.
Wow. The potential for misuse, even if it's only theoretical in some cases, is enormous. And wasn't there a military figure who wrote about this kind of mental battlefield?
Yes, Lieutenant Colonel John B. Alexander. In a 1980 Military Review article called The New Mental Battlefield, he discussed concepts like energy transfer, causing or healing disease remotely, telepathic behavior modification like inducing hypnosis over thousands of kilometers.
Telepathic hypnosis.
And crucially, direct thought transference where the target believes the thoughts are their own. Alexander apparently suggested this could enable mind control of the entire planet via satellite.
Mind control of the entire planet. That's the ultimate dystopian vision, isn't it? The battlefield is literally inside our heads.
It paints a picture of a completely new kind of warfare, or maybe total societal control. And the sources warn very strongly about dismissing these possibilities.
What's the warning?
That people who refuse to believe this technology could exist or be used will be dangerously unprepared. When the Night of the Thousand Stars, presumably the big holographic show, arrives, their disbelief puts them in jeopardy. It makes them vulnerable to the manipulation because they haven't mentally prepared for it.
A stark warning against complacency in the face of advancing tech. Okay, that covers the incredibly invasive Step 3. Let's move to the final stage, Step 4. Universal supernatural manifestation with electronic means. This one seems to have different possible outcomes or orientations.
That's right. Step 4 isn't one single event, but presents 3 potential scenarios for the final push.
What's the first orientation?
Orientation 1 is a massive, globally staged, fake alien invasion.
Okay, we touched on this. How would it play out?
The goal is to convince everyone that a hostile alien force is attacking major cities worldwide. Generate absolute panic. This panic would then be used to pressure the major world powers into using their nuclear weapons in retaliation against this fabricated alien threat.
Launch nukes at holograms.
Yeah.
Or drones. What would be the point of that?
The point comes after the false attack. Once nations have potentially exhausted or revealed their ultimate weapons, the UN steps in. Riding the wave of terror and relief, they demand universal nuclear disarmament from all nations to prevent future alien attacks or escalations.
So the invasion is the pretext to force disarmament.
Exactly. Leaving every nation militarily vulnerable and subordinate to a new global authority, established ostensibly to manage planetary defense. It's a path to a world government through manufactured fear.
Extremely cunning, if terrifyingly manipulative. What's the second possible orientation for step 4?
The second one targets Christian beliefs specifically, a fake Christian rapture.
A fake rapture. How?
The idea is to exploit the belief in the rapture held by many Christians. Stage a massive event making them believe it's actually happening. This might involve some kind of divine intervention narrative, perhaps featuring alleged good alien forces stepping in to save the righteous from a staged satanic attack happening simultaneously.
So, manipulate believers using their own core prophecies. What's the strategic goal?
The brutal goal described is to eliminate all significant opposition to the New World Order in one go. By staging a rapture, those who deeply believe and might resist the NWO are effectively neutralized or removed from the equation, either physically or psychologically, making consolidation of power much easier.
Using faith as a weapon against itself. That's profoundly cynical. What about the third orientation? It sounds the most chaotic.
It does. It's described as a global satanic ghost specters manifestation, a terrifying blend of electronic and supposedly supernatural phenomena.
How would that be delivered?
Through existing infrastructure. The theory claims these forces would travel through optical fiber networks, coaxial cables, even standard electrical and phone lines. They'd penetrate all electronic equipment and appliances, anything with a microchip, basically in every home worldwide.
Penetrate TVs, computers, phones, to do what?
To project global satanic ghosts and other terrifying specters everywhere, directly into people's homes through their devices. The aim is purely psychological terror on an unimaginable scale.
Pushing entire populations into madness.
Yes, hysteria and madness, leading to mass suicide, killing, and permanent psychological disorders. The idea is to utterly break the human spirit globally.
And the purpose of such widespread psychological destruction.
So that humanity, completely shattered and desperate, would be ready to implore any new messiah to reestablish peace everywhere at any cost. Even if that cost is the complete abdication of freedom, they'd beg for order no matter the price.
Creating a problem so horrific that people will accept any solution offered.
Exactly. The source compares it to techniques allegedly used in the Soviet Union to force acceptance of communism, breaking the population's will through terror and psychological manipulation.
The sheer scale of psychological devastation planned in that scenario is just beyond comprehension. Okay, so if any of these 4 steps culminating in one of those final orientations were actually carried out, what's the ultimate end game? What's the final purpose of this incredibly elaborate, horrifying hoax?
The ultimate goal, according to Monast's theory, is unambiguous. Total social control, complete enslavement of all humanity.
Enslavement under what?
Under a worldwide dictatorship based on the Luciferian religion we discussed earlier. But here's the insidious part. It would maintain the appearance of an international democracy, an illusion of freedom masking absolute control.
A velvet glove over an iron fist on a global scale.
Precisely. A system where control is total, but resistance is difficult because the mechanisms of control are masked by democratic-seeming structures.
What happens to those who do resist? Those who see through the illusion or just refuse to comply? Surely there would be dissenters.
The plan, as detailed in the source material, includes a terrifying system for dealing with dissent. Concentration camps.
Concentration camps? In this new world order?
Yes. Not just for imprisonment, but specifically for re-education for some and slave labor for others. And the source describes something truly chilling, a rainbow color classification of the new world order prisoner.
Rainbow color classification. That sounds almost innocuous.
The name does, but the alleged categories are horrific. It outlines different fates based on this classification, revealing a system of complete dehumanization and exploitation.
Can you elaborate on those classifications? What do they entail?
It's grim stuff, according to the theory. Classification 1 is supposedly Christian children designated for, and this is shocking, human sacrifice or sexual slavery in black mass ceremonies.
That's monstrous, unspeakable.
It is. Classification 2 is for prisoners to be used in medical experiments, testing grounds for new drugs and technologies on living human subjects.
Human guinea pigs.
Classification 3 is for healthy prisoners destined for an international human organ center. Their vital organs would be removed one by one while they're kept alive on life support, essentially harvested.
Harvested, like resources.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable cruelty. What are the others?
Classification 4 is for healthy individuals fit for underground slave labor, building the infrastructure of the new regime. Classification 5 is for uncertain prisoners, those deemed potentially salvageable. They'd go to international re-education centers, forced to publicly repent on worldwide television, praising the New World Order.
Public humiliation and forced conversion on a global scale.
Then there's Classification 6, an international execution center, for those considered irredeemable threats. And disturbingly, the source mentions a 7th classification, but its purpose is unknown, adding another layer of sinister mystery.
An unknown category. And the idea is that all this, the camps, the slavery, the organ harvesting, would happen while maintaining the facade of democracy.
Yes. The sources explicitly draw a parallel to how Hitler's regime hid the reality of the concentration camps during World War II. The illusion of a benevolent, democratic world government would be meticulously upheld, even while these horrors were supposedly occurring behind the scenes.
The level of deception required is almost as staggering as the cruelty described. Beyond controlling people physically and eliminating dissent, does the alleged project involve economic control too?
Absolutely. Total economic control is a cornerstone. The plan supposedly involves triggering an organized economic crash.
Wow.
As a pretext. This manufactured crisis would create the justification needed to introduce an in-between currency, a temporary measure.
What's the point of a temporary currency?
To force everyone to spend all their existing savings, liquidate their assets. This eliminates financial independence, makes everyone dependent on the system before the final step, rolling out global electronic cash.
A cashless society, centrally controlled.
Completely. And this system relies on the completion of the superhighway, the global electronic network, ensuring total political and economic surveillance and control, reaching into every single home, tracking every transaction.
An engineered collapse to force dependence on a new, totally monitored digital currency system. What about basic survival needs? Food, resources.
Also part of the control grid. The theory includes plans for microchipping wild animals, birds, fish, game animals.
Microchipping animals, why?
Ostensibly for tracking migration or populations, but the alleged real purpose is to track and trace any person attempting to live off the land, hunting or fishing for subsistence. This prevents self-sufficiency for anyone rejecting the New World Order.
Making independence impossible.
Right. And alongside that, laws would be changed to control food supplies, vitamin supplements, making people entirely dependent on state-controlled distribution. Plus, laws around religion and psychiatric disorders would be rewritten.
Not so.
To allow the state to easily identify, label, and then re-educate or even eliminate anyone deemed a violence potential or simply antisocial, which could mean anyone who disagrees with the regime. It effectively criminalizes independent thought or dissent.
It sounds like a blueprint for absolute totalitarianism, controlling every aspect of life, from money and food down to your thoughts and beliefs. And this brings us to a crucial point. How is modern technology implicated? How does today's tech make any of this seem even remotely plausible?
This is where the theory feels most relevant, perhaps most chilling today. The sources strongly emphasize that current technology, advanced computers, microchips everywhere, the internet, the interconnected superhighway isn't neutral.
What do they claim its purpose is?
According to the theory, this tech is designed and built specifically to track and control people. This is presented as a fundamental shift from older technologies, say from the 1940s or 50s, which were generally seen as tools to make life easier or more productive.
So, a deliberate shift in the philosophy of technology itself, from empowerment to control.
That's the core argument in this part of the theory, that the infrastructure for mass surveillance and control isn't an accidental byproduct, it's the intended function.
Okay, that pivots us nicely. We've outlined the theory, its steps, its alleged purpose. Now let's connect it to reality, or at least documented history. You mentioned real-world psychological operations, psyops, and government deception programs that show some disturbing parallels, even if Bluebeam itself is unproven. These historical precedents are important, aren't they?
They're crucial, because while Project Bluebeam, as described by Monast, sounds incredibly grand and perhaps outlandish, the principles behind it, exploiting fear, controlling information, staging false events to manipulate populations, these are not new ideas. We have documented examples.
Like MKUltra, that one always comes up.
Exactly. The CIA's MKUltra program, running from the 50s into the 70s, We know they conducted illicit experiments on brainwashing, hypnosis, using LSD, electroshock, sensory deprivation, trying to figure out how to control the human mind.
And the parallel to Bluebeam there is.
It's the direct attempt to manipulate human perception and behavior. It lines up chillingly with Bluebeam's alleged use of things like ELF waves or voice-to-skull tech to implant thoughts or alter beliefs. MKUltra proved a willingness, at least within certain secretive parts of government, to cross ethical lines in pursuit of mind control capabilities.
A definite historical marker for attempts to control the internal reality of individuals. What about fabricating external events? Public deceptions.
For that, look at Operation Northwoods back in 1962. This wasn't just a theory, it was a documented proposal from the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff.
What did they propose?
They proposed staging fake terrorist attacks on U.S. soil. Things like bombings, hijacking planes, even shooting down a civilian airliner and then blaming it all on Cuba.
To justify an invasion.
Precisely. To manufacture public support for war against Castro, the parallel to Bluebeam's alleged plan for a fake alien invasion or a fake rapture as a pretext for global change is stark. President Kennedy rejected Northwoods, thankfully, but the fact that it was seriously proposed at that level is deeply disturbing.
It shows a willingness to consider mass deception involving violence against one's own side. The Gulf of Tonkin incident in '64 also feels relevant.
Absolutely. The U.S. government exaggerated, likely lied about, an alleged attack on U.S. ships to justify escalating the Vietnam War. It shows how a single manipulated event can sway public opinion and lead to massive geopolitical consequences. Just like Bluebeam's theorized single grand staged event.
And then there's COINTELPRO.
Right, the FBI's program from the 50s to the 70s. Infiltrating, sabotaging, spreading disinformation against civil rights groups, anti-war activists, anyone J. Edgar Hoover deemed subversive.
So direct media manipulation, creating false narratives, disrupting opposition.
Exactly, which parallels Bluebeam's alleged use of fake broadcasts, controlling the narrative, managing public perception and response. And moving towards more tech-related parallels, we have HAARP.
Ah, yes, the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, officially for studying the ionosphere. But it spawned endless theories, hasn't it?
It really has. Theories about weather control, inducing earthquakes, even beaming voices into people's heads. While those are largely unproven speculation, the existence of powerful atmospheric heating technology and the secrecy surrounding some of its potential applications directly feeds into the Bluebeam narrative about using advanced tech for mass manipulation, like the holograms or the alleged ELF wave mind control.
Even if HAARP didn't do those things, the idea that such manipulation could be possible with advanced tech resonates.
Exactly. These real-world examples, MKUltra's mind games, Northwood's false flags, Tonkin's manipulation, COINTELPRO's disinformation, HAARP's technological mystique, they don't prove Bluebeam is real. But they absolutely create a historical context. They show that governments have engaged in deception, psychological warfare, and explored highly controversial technologies. It makes the concept of something like Bluebeam feel less like pure fantasy and more like a terrifying potential escalation of known tactics.
It certainly paints a picture where the building blocks, or at least the mindset, for such deception have existed. Okay, let's zoom in now on the specific modern technologies. Things that exist today or are rapidly developing that could actually enable a Bluebeam-like scenario. This is where it feels like science fiction is bleeding into reality.
It really is, and this is probably why the theory persists and resonates so strongly now. Many of the components Monast described, while maybe exaggerated in scale back then, have disturbingly tangible foundations in today's tech. Let's start with holographic deception, projecting those divine figures or alien ships.
Right, that seemed like the biggest leap. How realistic is projecting something convincing onto the sky, globally?
Well, maybe not globally, simultaneously, perfectly yet. But the underlying tech has advanced dramatically. We have very sophisticated 3D holograms now. Techniques like Pepper's Ghost are used for large stage illusions. We have developing augmented reality clouds, laser plasma displays creating images in midair.
Like those holographic pop stars in Japan, Hatsune Miku.
Exactly. She performs to huge crowds. It shows incredibly realistic, emotionally engaging holograms are possible and culturally accepted. On the military side, DARPA has its urban photonic sand table display projecting 3D battlefield maps that shows clear military interest.
So the military is definitely exploring advanced holographic projection.
Oh, yes. And there's ongoing research, particularly by the US and China, into laser-induced plasma holograms. These can potentially create more stable, persistent images that seem to float in space, maybe even with a tactile feel.
Okay, so the ability to project convincing dynamic 3D images is advancing rapidly. How does that apply to Bluebeam?
The theoretical application would be scaling this up significantly, likely using satellite networks. Imagine satellites beaming down focused lasers or microwave energy to create plasma holograms in the upper atmosphere, visible over large areas. These could depict angels, UFOs, religious figures. Combined with advanced AI voice synthesis, they could deliver those tailored divine messages in any language. The sheer immersive impact could be overwhelming.
A powerful, potentially reality-bending combination. What about the other key tech, the voice-to-skull and mind control aspect, hearing voices inside your head?
That falls under manipulating electromagnetic fields, or EMF. The microwave auditory effect, the Frey effect, is scientifically documented.
That's this one where pulse microwaves make you perceive sound directly in your head.
Yes, bypassing the ears entirely. U.S. and Russian military research confirmed this decades ago. There's even a U.S. patent from 2002, number 6470214B1, explicitly titled Nervous System Manipulation by EM Fields. It describes using electromagnetic fields broadcast through monitors or screens to affect the human nervous system.
So the scientific basis for influencing the brain, or at least perception, with electromagnetic waves is there. It's not just theory.
The basic phenomenon is documented, yes. And then you have for projects like HAARP, which, controversial theories aside, demonstrably could heat the ionosphere. Some theorists speculate that manipulating the ionosphere could create ELF waves capable of affecting brain waves on a large scale.
So for Bluebeam, the application would be
mass-inducing divine revelation-type hallucinations via satellite-beamed EM waves, or maybe targeting specific individuals or groups, making them hear God's voice or alien commands directly inside their minds, completely undetectable to anyone else. It's incredibly invasive.
affecting reality at the most fundamental personal level. And now we have AI and deepfakes, which seem to be getting scarily good, scarily fast. How does that factor in?
That adds a whole new layer. AI-generated deepfake religions. Think about OpenAI's Sora video generator or audio tools like 11 Labs. They can already create incredibly realistic fake video and audio.
So you could create a fake prophet or even a fake god, visually and audibly.
Exactly. Imagine an AI-generated Jesus or an alien ambassador appearing simultaneously on every screen, every device, delivering a perfectly crafted, emotionally resonant message. Now combine that with powerful AI language models like the next generation of ChatGPT and maybe future brain-computer interfaces like Neuralink.
So the AI could potentially talk to you directly inside your head via an implant, simulate a conversation with God.
That's the futuristic, deeply unsettling potential. AI could simulate these intimate spiritual experiences, create AI prophets who seem more wise and compassionate than any human leader, offer personalized religious guidance directly into the mind. It's a potential route to a completely synthetic, centrally controlled spiritual awakening.
Wow. Okay, what about the fake alien invasion part? How could modern tech make that convincing enough to fool the world?
Here, military advancements are key. Think about DARPA's drone swarm programs like Aerial Dragnet or Mosaic Warfare, highly sophisticated AI-controlled drones working in concert.
They could be programmed to fly like UFOs.
Easily, mimicking complex, non-human flight patterns appearing as a coordinated fleet. Combine that with advanced holographic projections for visual play, maybe some directed sound technology. And remember, this builds on decades of UFO narratives and government UAP task forces that have already primed the public to accept the possibility of alien craft.
So a staged alien fleet using drones, holograms, maybe sound effects, creating a threat big enough to justify global action.
Precisely. A manufactured alien threat used to push for global militarization under a single authority, or universal disarmament, depending on the specific goal from step 4. And finally, there's the endpoint of control, neural surveillance, and what some call predictive enslavement.
That sounds like the ultimate nightmare scenario, controlling not just actions, but thoughts. How close is that tech?
Brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, are advancing incredibly fast. Neuralink is the famous example, but DARPA also has programs like N3, the potential for directly extracting data from the brain, maybe even uploading or downloading information. Some experts predict basic versions could be viable by 2030.
Extracting thoughts. or implanting them.
Both are theoretical possibilities being explored. Now, combine that potential with AI-powered social credit systems like China's, or predictive policing AI that tries to identify future criminals before they act.
So in a blue beam endgame,
It wouldn't just be about monitoring people. It could be about actively punishing non-believers or dissenters through neural disruption. Imagine an omnipresent AI god judging your thoughts in real time, identifying internal rebellion, and instantly neutralizing it neurologically.
that's total control, beyond anything Orwell imagined, where technology isn't just watching you, it's inside your head, enforcing compliance.
It really raises profound ethical questions about where these technologies are heading, doesn't it? Regardless of whether a grand conspiracy like Bluebeam exists, the tools for unprecedented levels of control are undeniably being developed. We have to think critically about their potential misuse.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have the theory, the historical parallels, the enabling technologies. Let's try to synthesize this. Let's imagine a hypothetical, perfect Project Bluebeam scenario, a possible timeline. Based on these emerging tech trends and the steps Monast outlined, this is purely speculative, of course, building on the source material.
Yeah.
What might phase one, the preparation, look like, say, roughly 2024 to 2028?
Okay, yeah, speculative timeline. Phase one would be all about subtly shifting perceptions, normalizing the weird, getting people ready. You'd probably see a massive AI disinformation ramp up.
More deepfakes.
Exactly. Social media flooded with hyper-realistic videos, maybe weeping religious statues, strange lights in the sky that look like angels, convincing but fake UFO footage. Things that blur the line between miracle and hoax. At the same time, maybe AI chatbot prophets emerge online, gaining cult followings, all pushing this vague narrative of a coming unification, a new spiritual age, planting seeds of anticipation.
So using AI to create a background hum of the extraordinary, making people long for something more. What else in this prep phase?
Alongside that, you'd likely see a calculated UAP disclosure softening from governments.
More official UFO talk.
Yeah, maybe controlled leaks of blurry photos, ambiguous reports about non-human biologics. Just enough to get the idea of alien existence more into the mainstream, make it less shocking. Maybe NASA or ESA announced detecting anomalous signals from deep space. Nothing confirmed, just hints. It's about slowly, gently preparing the public mind.
A gradual conditioning process.
Okay.
What comes next? Phase two, the crisis trigger, maybe 2029 to 2032.
This phase needs a major global shock to create vulnerability. The scenario suggests a global economic collapse.
And how would that happen?
Maybe triggered by massive cyber attacks on financial systems, maybe cascading supply chain failures, maybe deliberate digital currency resets that wipe out savings. Whatever the cause, the result is chaos, fear, instability. And in that chaos, governments push for emergency governance, consolidating power under the guise of restoring order.
Classic disaster capitalism, but maybe technologically induced. And this is when the miracles start.
Right. Amidst the fear and uncertainty, you get the first holographic miracles. Imagine an AI-generated Virgin Mary appearing holographically over major religious sites, St. Peter's Square, Mecca, the Wailing Wall, maybe using advanced AR delivered via 5G or 6G networks. Simultaneously, fake, channeled messages from ascended masters or benevolent aliens go viral, offering comfort, explanations, and reinforcing the narrative that a great change is upon us.
A powerful combination. Manufactured crisis followed by manufactured divine intervention. How does that escalate into phase three, fake alien contact, say, 2033 to 2035?
Now comes the big show. An orbital alien fleet illusion. Using those swarm drones and satellite holograms we talked about, they simulate a massive, slow-moving UFO armada appearing in orbit, approaching Earth. It looks undeniable.
Global panic.
Exactly. World leaders hold emergency UN sessions, a global announcement. Humanity is not alone. It forces a sense of global unity against this perceived external presence or threat.
The visual confirmation of the alien narrative. But the scenario includes another layer of crisis here too, right?
Oh.
A biological one.
Yes, to really tighten the screws. A synthetic pandemic is unleashed. A lab-created virus, maybe something novel and scary, is blamed on extraterrestrial contamination from the approaching ships or probes.
An alien virus.
Right. This manufactured health crisis provides the perfect, unarguable justification for rolling out mandatory biometric IDs, digital health passports, global surveillance networks, all for public safety, of course. Individual freedoms evaporate under the combined threat of aliens and disease.
Alien threat plus pandemic equals justification for total control infrastructure. Okay, that brings us to phase four, the false messiah, maybe 2036 to 2040. This sounds like the endgame reveal.
This is the culmination, the avatar rise. A central figure emerges onto the world stage. This could be a highly charismatic human leader groomed for the role, or maybe even a completely AI-generated, hyper-realistic holographic figure.
A savior figure.
Yes, presented as the one who can make sense of it all, unite humanity, solve the crises. This figure would claim to bring a universal truth, uniting or superseding all previous religions, offering hope and order after years of chaos.
And people, desperate after the collapse, the pandemic, the alien threat, they'd be receptive.
Extremely receptive. And to solidify control, this is where advanced neural implants might be marketed, pitched as divine communion devices, offering a direct, personal, constant link to this new savior, this universal consciousness.
Plugging directly into the hive mind.
Essentially. This leads to the final surrender of sovereignty. Exhausted nations formally dissolve into a world union, maybe under the banner of galactic citizenship, and anyone who still resists, who refuses the implant or rejects the new order.
What happens to them?
They're labeled terrorists, enemies of humanity and peace. They'd be subjected to swift neurological pacification via implanted tech or directed energy, or simply rounded up and eliminated. Dissent becomes impossible.
Forced unity through technology and terror, erasing borders, erasing individual minds. So finally, Phase 5, total technocratic control, 2040 and beyond. What'd that look like?
This is the final state. AI God reigns. A massive centralized quantum AI system effectively becomes the global authority. It makes all major decisions, resource allocations, social planning, environmental management. Its dictates are enforced by autonomous drones, robots, pervasive surveillance.
Humanity's role.
Downgraded, managed, like livestock almost. The AI ensures stability, efficiency, compliance. But at the cost of freedom, autonomy, maybe even the core of what it means to be human. It's the ultimate technocratic dystopia born from deception.
It's an incredibly elaborate, chilling, hypothetical scenario, a truly dark potential future.
Yeah.
But of course, we have to inject some reality here. Even with all this advancing tech, there are huge challenges, strong counter-arguments against something like Project Bluebeam actually succeeding, right?
Absolutely. And it's crucial we cover those. This isn't about saying this will happen. It's about understanding the claims in their context. First, the most obvious point. There's still zero verifiable independent evidence that Project Bluebeam, as Monast describes it, actually exists or ever existed.
It's all based on his claims and subsequent interpretations.
Pretty much. No declassified documents, no credible whistleblowers confirming the specific grand plan. Second, the sheer technological feat seems borderline impossible, even now.
Pulling off a flawless, global, simultaneous holographic show and telepathic broadcast without anyone noticing glitches or inconsistencies.
It seems incredibly unlikely. Too many variables. Weather patterns affecting holograms, different atmospheric conditions, potential technological failures. And think about the secrecy required.
Right. You mentioned millions of conspirators potentially needed. How could you possibly keep that many people silent about something so enormous?
Exactly. It defies human nature. Leaks happen. People talk. Consciences bother people. Someone, somewhere, would almost certainly expose it. The larger the conspiracy, the exponentially harder it is to maintain secrecy.
That makes sense. What about the diversity of the audience? Languages, cultures?
A massive hurdle. We touched on this. Communicating a subtle, convincing, divine, or alien message globally requires more than just translation. You need perfect understanding of every dialect, every subdialect, every cultural nuance, every religious interpretation.
Getting it slightly wrong in one region could expose the whole thing as fake.
Instantly. Even the most advanced AI might struggle with that level of hyperlocal, culturally sensitive communication on a global scale simultaneously. And belief systems themselves are so varied.
The fake Christian rapture wouldn't mean much to billions of people.
Precisely. A supposedly universal event would likely fail to resonate universally. Atheists, agnostics, followers of different faiths, many would likely see through it or interpret it completely differently than intended. Plus, the stakes for the perpetrators are immense.
If it failed. If they got caught.
It would backfire catastrophically. It could trigger global outrage, revolution, total chaos, the exact opposite of the controlled order they supposedly seek. It would expose the royal arch-deceivers, as Monast called them, instantly.
And we live in a pretty skeptical age, don't we? People are quick to cry fake.
Increasingly so. There's widespread distrust of mainstream media, governments, institutions. People are more aware of deepfakes and disinformation. Pulling off a grand, unified deception in this fragmented, cynical information environment seems much harder than it might have been decades ago.
What about resistance from within the system? Could parts of the military or intelligence agencies refuse to go along?
That's another strong counterargument. It's unlikely everyone in power in every major nation's military and intelligence apparatus would be on board with such a plan, especially one potentially orchestrated by a transnational group dissolving their own nations. You'd expect significant internal resistance, attempts to block it or expose it, especially from groups fiercely loyal to national sovereignty or constitutional principles.
So the idea of monolithic elite coordination is probably unrealistic.
Probably. And finally, just looking at history, elites typically prefer slower, less risky methods of control.
Like what?
Economic manipulation, media propaganda, influencing education, gradual legislative changes. These are incremental, less likely to blow up in their faces. A giant, theatrical, high-stakes gamble like Bluebeam seems uncharacteristically risky compared to the usual playbook of power consolidation. It's too spectacular, too prone to catastrophic failure.
Okay, so lots of very practical reasons to be skeptical about the full Bluebeam scenario actually playing out. That's important balance. So we've really taken a deep dive here. We've navigated the complex, intricate claims of Project Bluebeam, those alleged 4 steps, from faked earthquakes and sky-high holograms, right through to telepathic control and engineered supernatural events.
And its terrifying proposed purpose total control.
Right. And we've explored those chilling parallels with documented psyops, things that actually happened, alongside the genuinely rapid advancements in technology, AI, holography, BCIs, that unsettlingly seem to make elements of this theory feel, well, less impossible than they once did.
It really highlights that intersection, doesn't it? Where technology, belief systems, and the potential for wielding power collide. It forces all of us, to ask some pretty critical questions.
Like how information is presented to us, how our own perceptions can be shaped, maybe even manipulated.
Exactly. And the nature of truth itself in a world saturated with sophisticated technology. This isn't just about one wild conspiracy theory. It's a lens, a way to examine our vulnerability to narrative, whether that narrative is real or entirely manufactured.
Absolutely. It really compels you to sharpen your critical assessment skills. So as we look ahead to a future where AI gets even smarter, deepfakes become indistinguishable from reality, holographic tech gets more immersive, brain-computer interfaces become more common.
Yeah.
What really is the difference between a globally witnessed miracle and a perfectly executed, technologically driven illusion?
That's the question, isn't it?
And maybe more importantly, how will you discern the truth? In a world where seeing is believing might genuinely no longer be reliable, where even your own thoughts could, at least hypothetically, be influenced from the outside, it really brings it back to basics, doesn't it?
It does.
Remember, your critical thinking, your willingness to question, to verify independently, your healthy skepticism. Now, more than ever, those are your strongest defenses.